Leaked video exposes Taliban gang RAPE of women's rights activist. In a shocking revelation that highlights the deteriorating human rights situation in Afghanistan, video evidence has emerged of Taliban members sexually assaulting an Afghan women's rights activist. This marks the first direct proof of such atrocities since the Taliban's return to power in August of 2021. The disturbing footage, reviewed by reputable media outlets, shows the activist being forced to undress and repeatedly RAPE'd by the armed men. Oh, this made my blood turn cold. During the assault, one attacker chillingly stated, "You've been fucked by the Americans all these years. Now it's our turn." This incident is part of a broader pattern of human rights violations against women in Afghanistan, where the Taliban has imposed what activists term gender apartheid. Despite the direct risks of detention, torture, and sexual violence, Afghan women continue to resist these oppressive measures. Rukhshana Media reports that at least 221 protests by women and girls have been recorded in the past 2 years, demonstrating their resilience in the face of severe repression. The video's emergence underscores the urgent need for international attention and action to address the plight of Afghan women under Taliban rule. So, this is extremely chilling. And this is very, very important because there have been reports coming out of Afghanistan for years now that when women are detained by the Taliban for improper hijab, there have been many reports of women who are tortured, which is just, I mean, I wish I could say that that's surprising, but it's not. But more than being tortured, that they're being sexually abused by the Taliban. And then oftentimes there are multiple instances of these women then doing a self deletion afterwards. Many of these women are extremely young. I was reading the story of one girl who was 16 years old when this happened to her. There was another young woman who was 23 years old when this happened. And sometimes there are instances where women are arrested by the Taliban, and weeks later, simply their bodies are found in the river. And however, this is the first time that we have direct proof and evidence of these abuses happening in Taliban detainment. So what happened is that this woman was arrested, and I believe she's like in her early to mid 20s. She's a young woman. She was arrested by the Taliban for protesting. And during detainment, she was tortured and then gang RAPE'd by the Taliban. And they recorded it. And in the video, you see her full face. She's forced to undress. She is fully identifiable. And then the entire assault upon her is recorded the entire time as the men take turns on her. And what happened is that she managed to escape Afghanistan. And when she started speaking out against the Taliban, they sent her this video. They sent her the video of her own gang RAPE. And then they said, if you keep speaking out, we are going to publicize this. And we're going to post this online for everyone to see. So they're blackmailing her. And so what she did is she went to the news outlets with this video. And obviously, they're not going to publish her name. They're not going to publish the video or any of those images or details. Right. That's against journalistic ethics. But they've reviewed the footage, confirmed all the details, and are now coming out with this story. And the whole time, when there was previous stories of this kind of abuse happening to women and girls in Taliban detainment, the guy who's the minister for promotion of virtue and prevention of vice in Afghanistan was going forward saying this is impossible because there are always three men with these women. And if there are three men with these women, then this is impossible. In
Why?
this. That's a good question. I'm assuming it has to do with the balance of witness statements and stuff. You know what it takes to prove an RAPE. I know technically the number of witnesses required is 4, but he was kept
Wait, they're
saying that
saying
this.
what's impossible? The fact that this happened?
Yeah, because I can go pull up the direct quote. Um, but he's like, "Oh yeah, this
I
is
mean,
impossible because
in
there's always 3 men with them, and then that's not possible."
what the
Here's
hell?
the direct
What
quote.
kind of
The issue of RAP is not at all possible because there is not just 1 or 2 people in the room with a prisoner, and when there are 3 people, such a crime would not happen. This is a very sensitive issue for the Taliban, and I'm sure such a thing did not happen.
So they're saying that based on that logic, there is no gang RAPE ever anywhere happening, because for the gang RAPE happening, there's multiple people involved, and obviously, if there's multiple people, RAPE will not happen. So the Taliban is questioning the very idea of the existence of gang RAPE altogether. I don't understand the
Dude, I
logic.
don't know. I mean, you're
Oh,
you're asking the wrong we're asking, "Oh, would a statement from the guy whose job is to enforce Sharia law on Afghanistan
right.
totally makes sense." It holds, it like, it holds up under scrutiny. No, of course not. Um, so
Imagine,
yeah, go
imagine
ahead.
being a woman rights activist trying to dedicating your life to trying to make Afghanistan better for women, and seeing before the Taliban coming to power, seeing signs of that happening, and being so hopeful for the future of the direction that maybe Afghanistan is going to be heading, and then for all of that to turn into a nightmare and Taliban coming back to power, but for you also to be in the center of that, somebody who was trying to make women's lives better in Afghanistan, being at the middle of these monsters that you were fighting against all your life, now you're actually in the middle of them, and they're all gang RAPing you. The very person that was trying to make life better for women in Afghanistan so much better is a victim of such a thing. Imagine that, and imagine after such an experience still fighting on, like being strong enough to actually keep on fighting. Like she took that video, because a lot of women, if they got that message, they would just go in a hole and never be heard of ever again. Like she took that video and she went to the journalist with it, and she's fighting back still. After all of this, she's still fighting back. That is some
Yeah,
resilience.
it's insane. I would really recommend to people if to watch a movie called The Last Birthday. And this movie is essentially about a group of Afghan women celebrating a birthday of one of their friends. And they're talking about their dreams and the projects that they're working on and everything. And then during this birthday, the fall of Afghanistan is occurring. And then it becomes about how they're all together while Afghanistan falls to the Taliban. It is an incredibly moving movie. Incredible movie. So go watch The Last Birthday. Um, which is not to take it back to this. Another case in point of why I don't think wearing the hijab or whatever is a good marker of if you should in and of itself is not a good marker of why you should or should not accept people. Because I promise you, some of these women who are going through this and fighting harder and through circumstances that most people would never, ever, 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 ever do, they're going to be wearing the hijab. Do so.
Yeah.
I already made my
But
point on that.
again,
Armin
now
already
that you
made his
said
point.
that, I have to respond as well. With all that being said, I do not support. I think bringing people from Afghanistan in general should be closed off unless very, very, very rare circumstances. I understand all of these stories, but again, I think it should be completely closed from a country like Afghanistan unless very rare like this one, for example, would be one of those rare circumstances. This woman would be one of those rare circumstances that I referred to.
Or people who assisted the Allied forces, or
Yes,
atheists in
yeah, but
Afghanistan and their families.
yeah, but think about these, every single one of these examples that you mentioned. Think about what they have in common. I don't. There is no mystery around it. I don't have to investigate. I don't need resources to be able to figure this out. So
That's not
imagine
true.
if you were a no, on a spectrum. What do you mean not true? Like, listen to what I'm saying. If I have an Afghani person that was working as a translator to American soldiers, risking their lives working for American soldiers, that's already in my system. I already
Mhm.
have that guy. I don't need to go investigate, come up with all these crazy schemes to figure out if this person is going to be a threat to my country or not. This person has risked their life to serve American soldiers in Afghanistan. He's already
Yeah.
on the list of somebody who will allow in. I don't need to do any investigation. Those are the examples I am talking about. But again, remember, the number of these people that we're talking about that are these rare cases is so small compared to the waves of migrants that are coming in, that it's a small percentage. This is very rare. All of these people that you're mentioning, they are very rare compared to the waves of migrants that are coming into the country.
Sorry for interrupting you. I see what you mean. Like, there's an organization that does this in America called Save Our Allies. They have done insane, incredible evacuations of Americans in Afghanistan and our allies in Afghanistan. Like, straight up out of a movie evacuations of people. And they do incredible work. But Armin, we could have someone who has been approved by the government and was working with us, was our ally, blah blah blah, and their wife is a hijabi, for example, and their whole
Again, these are one of those. I think I don't know if I made my point very well or not. There are rare cases where there is no filtering is required, because I already have it in my book that this is a person that is done this or that. Okay, I don't need any filtering. I don't need any investigation. I already have the evidence that this person is fine to come in. Okay, I'm talking about a sea of people that are coming in that I cannot investigate individual by individual. So I am talking about those people. I am going to look for certain signals, and then based on those signals, I have to quickly dismiss many cases. That's what I'm talking about. These people are not that. I can, based on any signal that shows any sign of a certain position or certain type of people, when millions of people are coming in, hundreds of thousands of people are coming in, I need to dismiss a lot of them based on very few signals. I have no other choice. The examples that you're giving is completely different. The examples that are giving me, I don't need to do any investigation. I don't need to do any filtering. This guy worked with us. This guy was on the battlefield working with us. Why do I even need to look for signals? I don't care about the hijab or anything like that, because those other markers or other signals that I was talking about was because I can't go with anything else. So I'm forced to go based on these signals. When somebody already has
mm,
this much more detailed information of them, I don't need to waste resources into investigating them because they have already proven to be on my side. That's a different. But again, remember, it's very important. I have mentioned this. This is such a small percentage of the tsunami of migrants that are coming in. Even if you allow every single one of them coming in, even if there's some bad apples in the middle of them, this is nothing. The only way that you could destroy a country is with the tsunami of migrants coming in, because they're changing the demographic. All of these examples that you're mentioning, if you add them together, the numbers are so small that they won't even change the demographic of a country, let alone change their ideology.
okay. Well, I'm actually glad we touched on this again because now I have a better understanding of what you've been saying.
Oh, okay.
That's why
Okay.
it's important for me to keep pushing you on these things, right?
Okay.
Because I need to establish what you actually believe. You know what I mean? Um, so let's go to the super chats. Nara Buffy just became a new member. Thank you, Nara. Welcome to Satan's Minions. Jack Johnson gave a super chat saying, if the USA stayed in Afghanistan for 20 more years, could the rise of the Taliban have been prevented? Was it a mistake to leave Afghanistan? That's a spicy topic. Basically, my understanding is that most troops that ever worked in Afghan and served in Afghanistan knew from the beginning that this was going to happen as soon as they left, because they were there working with the Afghani forces, and they knew that it was gonna it was like an open secret that you like, yeah, no, this is gonna fall as soon as we leave. That's my understanding based on what I've read, what I've seen, interviews I've watched. Was it a good idea to stay longer? Frankly, I think probably not. And
Well,
it's people were pushing for the US to leave Afghanistan for like decades. And then they did, and then the same people are like lambasting for what happened. I don't know, that always confused me. Some people are like, Joe Biden is like the bravest president for going through with this because everyone knew that this was gonna happen. He was just the only one willing to, like, bite the bullet and take the popularity hit enough to do it, because the Taliban has the, benefit of when they're at a disadvantage, just go across the Pakistani border, and then they can always come back. Like, it's their home turf, like, they can always just come back, they're always gonna be there. Ay, ay, ay. Armin, what do you think?
well, I think United States mission in Afghanistan was a lost cause to begin with. So at some point they had to quit, and the sooner the better, because the more they stayed, the bigger the problem would have become when they left, and the bigger the cost that would have been to America. But the reason why Afghanistan was a lost cause is for two reasons. First of all, United States was never going to be willing to do what it did in Germany and Japan, which was target the very foundation of the problem, which was the ideology. Remake that society from the bottom up. Um, both in Germany and Japan, which were the results were so much better. And the reason why United States is not willing to do that anywhere in Afghanistan or Iraq is because the foundation there is Islam. The problem is Islam. So imagine United States coming in. So United States was completely okay with being like, yeah, we're gonna fucking destroy Nazism or communism or whatever shitty cult ideology the Japanese had. They were the Japanese wrote the Constitution, but after they were defeated and the United States came and looked at it, they were like, yeah, "What is this bullshit?" And they threw it away. Like, let us write the Constitution for you.
Nope.
Nope, not that's not gonna
Denied.
happen. So they write the Constitution like, yeah, this is your Constitution, okay? And look at what happened to Japan now, right?
That's
It,
so
they did they
wild.
didn't so they were not willing to do that with Afghanistan or Iraq, because to do that we'll have to be like, yeah, this Islamic bullshit is out. Like, that's what are you talking about? Like, all of this is insane, and United States is not going to come and take a position against Islamic values in Afghanistan or Iraq, because we're in a day and age that we could say these things about Nazism and communism, but we cannot say that about Islam. But another point, and that's reason number one. Reason number two is I don't even know Afghanistan is capable of, because Islam is much more deep rooted that whatever Japan was going through, that ideology was going through at that time, or Nazism is not as deep rooted as Islam. Communism is not as deep rooted as Islam. So it's one. So the problem number one is that United States was not capable or willing to go and completely destroy the foundations of this ideology that keeps these countries backward. Well, not willing to, but the number two is I don't even know if they're able to, if they wanted to, because it's so much ingrained within the fabric of that society. um so I don't know, even if they wanted to, they could do something like that. So yeah, I don't know, what do you guys think? Susie, are you back? That's all my rant. Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the next super chat. Carl is asking, the problem with Afghanistan was that Western libertarians were in charge, who have no grasp of societal values and culture.
No, no, no. The problem with Afghanistan is Islam. Okay, the problem of with Afghanistan is the Taliban. The problem with Afghanistan is within Afghanistan. That's the problem with Afghanistan. I disagree with you.
The
Right?
idea that
It's not
Western
just
libertarians have no concept of societal values is freaking hilarious to me. Given the small amount of time I've spent with libertarians, like, it's kind of a thing they're obsessed with.
Mm.
um, John Bundag gave a super chat saying, Armin, there are Islamists think Masood's Jamaat Islami who hate the Taliban, perhaps one of those rare situations where I see reason for a coalition. A
No,
coalition
we're
of who
talking
with who? A coalition
with
of,
Islamists.
oh Lord, it's
No,
only backfired every time it's been attempted.
no. I mean that. I mean, if John, think about this. The whole reason why we have the Taliban because we thought about that's exactly how we brought the Taliban into power because we did a coalition with them against the communists. So now you're gonna.
We did that and we done fucked up.
That's how we got the Taliban.
Ronald Reagan would like to thank the brave Mujahideen. Remember that shit? Like, it didn't go so well.
Yeah.
um Sid Dave gave a super chat saying immigrants from democracies like Japan, Korea, and India integrate. Chinese Russians do well, even though they come from dictatorships but not theocracies. Muslim immigrants from theocracies are the problem. This is, okay, I'm going to be honest, Sid Dave. This is a very myopic understanding because I can give you examples off the top of my head of like a group from every single one of these countries not doing well integrating. Now, whether that's the general trend could be different
They do well.
in different situations.
On average, though, he's right. They do well, yeah. They do mostly well.
I still don't agree completely.
On
I,
average.
I don't completely agree. I see your
Yeah,
point.
the whole
I see your point.
that's why we say yeah, that's why we say on average, because it's not completely true. It's not true
Yeah.
always. So we're talking about averages.
Um Okay. And so Dave gave another super chat saying Nazism, communism, Japanese militarism were not supernatural ideologies. Oh no, I disagree. Islam is that is why you cannot defeat and replace those ideologies, but not Islam. There are elements of each of these ideologies that do have a kind of supernatural element to it, especially with communism. It comes down to like a cult of personality. It's not quite supernatural, but it is kind of this meta
But they're
narrative
still
aspect.
worldly.
There's occultism in Nazism that was spiritual. The Japanese militarism, it's literally that the emperor is a freaking god. Like,
True, true, but I agree with Sid again here. These are some elements with each all of these that have some supernatural, tendencies within them, but all of these have a worldly focus. Nazism, communism, the Japanese, even if they called their emperor God, they were not focused. Their goal, their ideology was not focused on an afterlife. It was focused on this world, the material world. I mean, communism, the most is about materialism, right? Not all of them. So here's the difference, right?
I see your
And
point.
not you, yeah, you could get Nazis and communists and Japanese to submit by deterring them by altering this world. The problem with Islam is that it's so focused on the afterlife that the deterrence might not work for them as effectively. A Nazi general or a communist general or a Japanese general is not going to go home celebrate the fact that their child died. They're going to go home and cry. If you kill their children, they're going to if their children die in battle, they're going to go home cry about it. It's only that Muslim militant that has the possibility of going home and celebrating the death of their child. That's the difference.
I I mean, there are elements of honor society and
On
with especially
average,
yeah,
it's a spectrum. Yeah.
especially with like ritualized self-deletion, this kind of thing.
Yeah,
Anyways,
they
we're
will
getting
honor
sidetracked.
it, but they will, again, it's a tragedy. It's a hit. It's still a tragedy, even if they honor their memory. Do you know who makes the most amazing, gorgeous, and other adjectives that I can't use here on YouTube, blasphemous art ever? We do! And for some reason, we are giving it away for free. Download them now using the link in the description before we change our mind.